Happy Saturday and welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino here, and I'm with Evan and Lisa Benson of Pause, the first Pause on the East Coast, the first Pause in Georgia. Always happy about that. Always happy when Georgia gets things first and is one of the early adopters. You know, and it's also not the first time I've heard of a comparison between California and Georgia, maybe the movie industry. But we're going to have a really fun conversation. We're going to talk about New Year's resolutions, those dirty words of resolutions. We're going to talk about entrepreneurial journeys, and we're going to talk about a lot of prospecting, looking for the right opportunity. So Evan and Lisa, how you guys doing?
Doing great. Nick, thanks so much for having us in. We're super excited to be here. Happy holidays to everybody, and hope everybody's got all their gifts, at least in sight for this year.
Yeah, let's hope so. The shopping season's so freaking long. You have to. I mean, the sales start on like October 2nd. They almost destroy Christmas. My kids are little, and like, you start Halloween on September 1st. The day Halloween ends, Christmas is all up, and people wonder by the time it actually comes, everyone's like, well, okay, well, you know, that's the fun. So it's amazing how they find a way to, capitalism sucks the fun out of everything. But anyway, how about you, Lisa? How you doing?
I am good, and I'm just more, again, grateful for being here, but wishing people are feeling good right now instead of feeling depleted and feeling now the stress of having to set New Year's goals, as you were talking about.
Yeah, so I want to get to your guys' background, but I think that's a really good place to start. I find it fascinating that we're in a world where you have every bit of information at your fingertips. You can literally say, here's my body weight, here's my family history, here's where I'm from in the world, go into AI and say, what should I do? And it will spit out something that is better for you and more accurate than anything a doctor would have prescribed. Yet we're unhealthier and dumber than we've ever been in the history of this civilization. We over rely on these things. We're sporadic. We're too worried about dopamine rushes. We're not thinking of the whole thing. So I think it's a good conversation to have of why New Year's resolutions fail, what's wrong, and how people have to start forming habits and doing things the right way. And you know, one of the things I love, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, the concept of contrast theory is more about body control and breathing control, and it's about overcoming those things, because once you can do something like that, like, and look, don't start jumping into an ice plunge bath. Like, start with a cold shower, right? After you work out in the morning, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I work out, and the first thing I do is an ice cold shower. It's terrible the first 5 times you do it, and then it gets easier every time after that. So anyway, we got ahead of ourselves, as I usually do. So let's start briefly. This has been an entrepreneurial journey. You both have different stories of how you got to this point. Lisa, why don't we start with you, because you came a little less orthodox route as far as business goes. So talk about previous roles and how you got to here, and what made you finally realize that it's time to go out on my own.
Yeah, so I started, my entire career has been focused on nonprofit, so either in service of children or families. And so I started locally, and then I worked for a national organization. And so a lot of my role just dealt with career support as my career progressed. It turned more and more into helping others figure out what they want to do. And so that's my background.
In your experience and in your honest opinion, and again, I'm throwing another curveball, what is the biggest problem? What blocks does this country put in the way that makes it so hard for these people to get the services or to get the direction that they need to figure out what they want to do? What is making it so hard?
I think there's too much information. And everybody thinks that they have to follow a specific, and this is literally for all of life, doesn't matter what realm, they think they have to follow a very specific protocol. They're going to fall off and be unsuccessful. Instead of feeling what is right for them uniquely and without anybody else. So I think that is the huge roadblock. Too much information, and then thinking that you have to follow that information versus just feel your way through for what's right for you.
Yeah, and I think, as I say, like, one of the things I always ask for is, I never ask for the times are good. Who cares? Like, hey, tell me when you overcame adversity. And the only way, if you have adversity, is to set yourself up to fail at it, and learn from it. And we are not allowing ourselves to fail. Everything is so perfection-based. My daughter's 7 in a private school. I hate it. I was a public school kid in New York, but my wife has her on a regimen where if she's not getting straight A's, I'm like, what if she's not good at English or writing? Who cares? She's great at math. Why? It doesn't have to be everything. These kids, if they're specializing, let them figure out now what they're good or bad at, right? She's not lazy. She's doing the work. She's smart. The teacher actually gave us a report. It said, like, she can't read. She goes, but she comprehends beautifully. I go, wait a second. So you're telling me that she can't put the words together, but she comprehends? Come on. And the teacher's like, uh-oh. Kind of like, you caught me. Like, that's not possible. So I agree with you. What kind of advice did you give these kids? Because I'm sure this is going to help with your customer service, and in the future, that's a thankless job. That you are always in a role where you're giving, no matter what, the parents are probably asses about it. Like, so tell me about the role and what the interaction was like with the kids and the parents.
I think there's just so much stress in life, period. It doesn't matter in what realm. And so it's about taking things and kind of like digesting them for what works for you. Again, this kind of theme, the hard work no one wants to do. No one wants to get to know themselves. No one wants to know what is hard for me and then how can I dissect that to make it easier. And so when we don't do that, we avoid and evade everything else because, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to turn around because I'm being distracted by here's how to write a perfect resume. Here is how you ace interview questions. Here is what your career is supposed to be.
And it's a normal defense mechanism. It's not like it's an unheard of thing. And the people who respond the best in those situations are usually the most successful. It's a normal. Maybe what you should have done is kept doing what you were doing so then you could have referred the people under all the stress and be like, yo, jump into an ice bath. That would have been the ultimate sales role. So, Evan, what about you, brother?
Yeah, so my background, I'm a CPA by trade. So I worked for a couple of the major public accounting firms. I've had a couple of industry roles. From an entrepreneurial perspective, I've done a lot in the real estate space. But Pause is our first move into kind of a brick and mortar setup in franchising. And so we've considered, a lot of different business endeavors over the years, but we were really looking for something that really checked 3 boxes. So we wanted a community connection, personal interest, and a financial opportunity. And Pause was the first one that could check all of those boxes. And so when we established that, we were very quick to try to move forward and try to execute on that.
Yeah, I love it. I think, one, the CPA background, right? Whenever you're talking numbers, there's a lot of the personal taken out of it, right? You're talking numbers, right? This is not, and what's the ultimate thing when you work for a company? You don't want to be a number. Well, you live in the world of numbers. So you have the raw, hard data, like this is stuff, and that balance between creativity and being analytical is huge in the world right now. But for a long time, you were either the guy with the creative guy in the corner coming up with the ideas, or you're the guy crunching the numbers to say how bad those ideas were. So you have the side of, all right, well, these numbers don't lie. Let's look at the raw numbers. And you have the side of, like, hold on, here's the compassion, and here's the everybody goes through stuff side of the business. So any kind of opportunity benefited from that. Right? No offense, but 2 CPAs starting a business together is going to run a very different kind of business.
That's right.
So I think, backgrounds are set. So you both come from different worlds. I will ask you about that part of the world. What do you think is most misunderstood? Everyone here is Ernst & Young and KPMG and Deloitte and all these big guys. And they have such weird perspectives of what they do. And what they do is so varied. They're consultants, they're accountants, they're auditors. What do you think people most get wrong about the industry in which you were in? And did it affect your desire to kind of get out and get it and do stuff on your own?
Yeah, I think, anytime somebody hears about a accounting firm, they think it's just a tax practice because that's how people relate to it.
So how do I cheat on my taxes? I'm just kidding. Keep going. We're getting near that time of year.
Yeah, that'd be a different show. But
that's where my LLC comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think people automatically go to taxes because that's how they familiarize yourselves with accounting, is they think of taxes. But we think about these big firms, and it's changing by the day in terms of the breadth of services. But there's a very important public good that's done by these public accounting firms by going in and auditing some of these big firms, making sure that they're reporting numbers the proper way, and that we are not going to have another major financial crisis as a result of a big fraud or a big company that gets taken down. So I think that's the misconception, is that these firms do a lot more than just taxes.
Yeah, and the firms are held liable. I mean, if they make a mistake and they read the books wrong or they don't catch a certain amount of fraud, and it's happened, I mean, within this building, one of the family members of the owners got into a business, turned out to be a complete fraud. They didn't lose the money. Ernst & Young, who audited and approved and stamped those books, were the ones who ate that money. So there's a lot of risk in there. So it's not, it is not just hey, we're running numbers. It is, if we're not triple, quadruple, octuple checking this thing and the mistake is wrong, that's on us also. I think people don't understand how much responsibility. It's not just like a good job, but here's a check. It's like I'm taking on personal responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility here.
Yeah, I mean, the partners at these firms are risk managers, for sure. And to your point about the consequences, there's a firm that used to be called Arthur Anderson that's no longer around because they had some bad audits. So it is definitely it is all about risk management, I think, at the partner level. But I think that's one of the big misconceptions with the firms, is they do a lot more than just taxes.
Yeah. And I think risk management is a huge part of psychology, and there's so much that goes into it. And like at its core, like, look, this country has gone through times, but these are all things we've been through before. We love to look forward and think about now, but no one looks back. The Republican and Democrats they've switched who they've been appealing to, right? The Democrats were working people, and that's what Trump took. He took working class people.
Yep.
So we've switched so much that if you look back to history, you probably find similar scenarios and ways to go. And psychology doesn't change that much. People's interests in what they're trying to achieve. The only thing I think that has changed, and I think this will be a good part of the marketing conversation, is we understand more about psychology now. So we're bringing more about the biological responses into things like marketing, right? Like everyone is trying to rush you with dopamine and hook you on dopamine because that's the addiction. That's what social media does. That's what gambling does. And I'm going to the casino tomorrow if anyone's curious, so we'll test it out. I'm going up to Harris Cherokee. Love those guys. But they've brought that into the mainstream, and that's what I think makes things like social media so dangerous, is that they've learned so much now about our responses, but ironically, the responses haven't changed much. A dopamine rush, all it is a reward for your body to go seek out something that, like, so if it's food, you smell food, dopamine rush means go eat, dummy. Like, there's no higher thought. We haven't changed that much.
Right.
They're just capitalized. The difference is you used to be able to find the serotonin that said, okay, you got enough, now chill. They don't want you to get the serotonin. They just want to keep flooding the dopamine. And then we wonder why we have so many drug addicts and we have so many problems, because you bring in this neuroscience into this, and now it's very addicting. So that being said, in the next segment, we're going to talk about how to shut your phone off, jump into an ice cold bath, and then jump into a sauna and see how you would regulate your temperatures and your dopamine that way.
That's right.
So you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3, and we will be right back.